Welcome to Faith Vocals. My name is Faith. I've been talking for a while on this channel about maybe sometime I would start talking about stories and delving into the meaning of those stories and maybe how I view those stories through the lens of a Christian, which is kind of going to be the running theme of the channel. I never want to get away from the concept of what being a Christian means to me and what the Bible says about the life that I live and perceive. But today is going to be the first day that I'm going to try to tackle stories. And I thought that I would start with something relatively easy, something I wouldn't have to research a lot. Boy, was I fooled. I'm going to start with Sing. I know that Sing 2 has come out recently. I'm going to be talking just about Sing 1. I have not seen the Sing 2 movie, so I'm not sure that I will, but let me know if it's worth my while to see it and or comment on it. Definitely, I'd love to see your comments down below. I am not the sole arbiter of what a story means, so I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments down below. Got a long outline here, probably longer than I'd like. I tend to produce videos that are longer than I'd like, but we'll see how long this takes. But it's going to be just me talking. A lot of the channels that cover movies do tend to have B-roll where you're seeing clips of the movie. Unfortunately, I am not yet that good a YouTuber, so we're going to be just watching me talk about the movie, and I'm sorry for that. I can't wait to get better at this medium. Finally, two more points before we fully get in. I am going to be assuming that you've seen the movie because I figure it's pretty easy to get your hands on. You can probably pick up a copy at your local library. So I will be talking about spoilers freely. And also for this talk, I'm going to be focusing on the main character, Buster Moon. And if you haven't seen Sing, the story is mostly Buster Moon, but also almost equally to him, there's like 5 other characters who have their own arcs and are developing and growing through the story as much as he is. And actually there are 6 characters who are recognized as the characters in the movie. I'm excluding one. So there's Buster Moon, and then there's 3 gals, Ash, Rosita, Mina, and then 2 guys, Mike and Johnny. And if you're saying, where's Gunter? Where's Gunter? Well, I'm not considering him one of the main cast outside of Moon, and I'll tell you why in a bit. So the 5 that I mentioned, the 3 gals and the 2 guys, I'm calling the ensemble in my head. It's a singing song, so I'm going to use singing show, so I'm going to use the word ensemble for them. And Gunther is different than the rest of those characters because he doesn't really have an arc. We don't care where Gunther came from. We don't care if he changes. He's just a lovely character, and he's only there to help Rosita change in the movie. Rosita, Mina, Ash, and Johnny all have traditional arcs that we're used to where they change for the better. Mike is interesting because he has what could be called a negative arc, where he's on the wrong path, he stays on the wrong path, and he suffers for being on the wrong path. From what I understand, canonically off-screen he dies in the movie, so at the end, so spoiler, if don't get attached to Mike in this movie if you haven't seen it. You don't see it, they keep it kid friendly, but it's insinuated that he got at the end of the movie. So that is one thing I wanted to say about Gunther. He is what I'm going to call an impact character, and this is a term that is in author circles. I think it came from the producers of the Dramatica theory for writing. The impact character is not the main character. You have your protagonist, you have your main character, that would be Buster Moon. But for each member of the ensemble, they have their own arc going on also. So if you were to take their little arc and look at their little story, well, each of them would be the hero of their own story. So each of them would be their own protagonist. In I think most, if not all, stories, there's got to be someone opposed to the protagonist who helps that protagonist change into what they become. Or maybe it's a flat arc story, which I'm going to say is Buster Moon's. I'll explain the flat arc in a bit. But if it's a flat arc story, then the protagonist changes the impact character. So that's, you have your protagonist, you have your, I'm sure I've got my hands all mixed up now. You have your protagonist, you have your impact character, and the protagonist either gets changed by the impact character or the protagonist changes the impact character. And that's how these usually work in movies. In this case, Gunther changes Rosita. He's the one who's constantly trying to tell her to get out of her own head, stop overthinking, which is her major issue in the movie Sing. So now on to the main body of what I wanted to talk about in Sing. I wanted to look at what is the message of Sing. And I think it's pretty clear as you're watching the movie. There are so many movies, especially for children, where the message is basically believing yourself, right? Basically all of the Disney movies are believing in yourself. I'm sure there are exceptions, but I'm just going to broad brush it and say all of them are believing yourself. Nearly every child's movie is believing yourself, and Sing is no exception. So, but how do we know that this is the message that the movie is trying to present to us? What makes this message stand out so much? And in a lot of movies, I think in all of Western storytelling, there's really only 3 types of stories, and I've talked about these arcs already. You've got your positive change arc, where the character changes for the better. That's most of our stories. You have your flat arc, where the character doesn't change. Instead, they're changing the world around them by the power of who they are. And that's Buster Moon's arc in this story. And then there's the negative change arc, which is what I mentioned with Mike in this story. It's a tragic arc. There's the character has this flaw, this lie that they're believing in and following, and they never get off the downward spiral that is going to really work them into the grave. So we don't have a lot of those in Western storytelling. We do have some. Mike, like I say, is the example. So this is a great movie to look at all of the arcs. Again, I want to focus mostly on Buster Moon. And for a kid's movie, though, you don't usually focus on the negative change arc. Those movies tend to be sad, and they tend to have a lot more nuance than maybe a kid would be assumed, would stereotypically pick up on. So the negative change arc doesn't tend to fit into kids' stories. So we really only have 2 ways to tell this story, the change arc or the flat character arc. And I've already said I think Buster Moon is a flat character, but let's look at whether he could be a change character. What are we looking for if we wanted to see if Buster Moon changes during the story? And we start the story, and the first thing that we see about Buster Moon, after he gives us his intro, he tells us this lovely story about how he got enamored with the theater. And I've got to throw this in here. I think the initial presentation of his character is so cute, because we kind of learn about him backwards. We see that he loves the theater, and then we find out he wanted to be the first koala in space, and then we hear his name, Buster Moon. And how appropriate that someone with the last name Moon, of course he wanted to be the first koala in space. His last name is Moon. That's probably the whole reason. And then, interestingly, in the theater scene where he becomes enthralled with the theater, You see the sheep, Nana. You find out her name is later. She's climbing this set piece mountain on the stage, and there's a moon in the background. And so, of course, he loves the theater. He's moonstruck. That's basically his character. And then you find out that he exactly exemplifies his name. I don't think I've seen anybody ever comment on this, but he's got the moon in his eyes. He is always pursuing the greatest thing. This is a koala of ambition. And also, if there's anything in his way, he's going to bust through it. That's just his approach to life. He doesn't stop for the rules, he busts through them. So he's Buster Moon. So I love the design for the concept of this character. And okay, is Buster maybe a change character? Does he change for the better during this movie? So we see him initially, he's doing the cinematic thing where he tells us directly about himself. He breaks the fourth wall to tell us about himself, and then he snaps into the story when someone's pounding on his door, and it's all the crew from his last show, and their checks have bounced and they want to get paid, and his response is to flee out the secret exit in his office, avoid the phone call from the bank, from Judith from the bank, and take lunch to talk to his friend Eddie and ask Eddie, can your dad please sponsor another show? To which Eddie says no. So we're setting up the world that Buster Moon lives in. He's got this problem. He's got an external problem in which he has no money. And he's searching for money from anywhere he can get it. He wants to sustain this theater that's his identity and his life's dream. And he has no resources. And as we're looking at his position in the story, what we want to be trying to figure out is, does he believe a lie? Because if he's a change character, there's some lie, some approach to life that he believes in, and he's got to shake that off and turn around, start believing the truth, and that's how he's going to change for the better. And then the next question is, well, if he doesn't believe a lie and he believes the truth, what is that truth? And then the lie would be in the world around him. So is the world around him emblematic of some lie that that needs to be taken down, that Buster needs to be such a powerful character that people around him start believing the truth that he believes, and the lie slowly crumbles over the course of the story. So where is Buster Moon in this scenario? We see people banging down his door to get paid. We see the bank calling him. We see him fleeing out the secret entrance, and we see his buddy Eddie saying, Dad says no. Dad's not going to support your theater anymore. And even in the restaurant that they're eating at, Buster doesn't have the money to pay for the fancy restaurant where he's decided to meet Eddie. So he's brought his lunchbox full of sandwiches. And of course the maitre d' or the waiter, I don't know the appropriate, if maitre d' is appropriate for that role in French, but the waiter sees them and throws them out of the restaurant because they have no intention of paying for food. They're just taking up a table. So the world around Buster is not friendly to him. The world around Buster is making demands of him. The world around Buster won't allow Buster to do what it is that Buster wants to do. Is that because there's a lie in the world around Buster? And I think as we're looking at the story and we're trying to analyze this, well, crew members need to get paid. If you've got a loan from the bank, you need to pay your payments. If you go to a restaurant, you need to pay for the food. Why would you go to a restaurant if you're not going to pay for the food? So it doesn't feel, certainly there's this united theme of the world is against Buster, but it doesn't feel like there's a lie to the world. Later on, Buster has the inciting incident of the movie, the thing that starts the story really going. You usually in a story have a period in the beginning where it's just showing you the world the character lives in. This is how his world looks based on where he's come from. And then there's an incident that happens that sets the whole story going. If this incident did not happen, the character would not grow or would not change anyone around him, because there would be no need, because the world would be going exactly as it did from the beginning. This inciting incident changes something about the character's comfortable world. Now he's uncomfortable, and that's what causes him to change or to change others. And so the inciting incident in this movie is when his secretary accidentally puts the wrong number on some flyers for a competition he wants. He's telling her, we're going to have a prize of $1,000 for this competition, but via an accident, it doesn't get printed that way. It gets printed $100,000. Moon doesn't have $100,000. He barely has $1,000. He's going to have to sell off personal belongings if he's going to get the $1,000. But she lets the flyers go. Through another accident, the flyers go out to the whole city saying $100,000 prize reward. And then the next scene we see with Moon after that, of course, is all of the beasts. They're all these animal creatures, not humans. They're these critters. I said I was going to assume you knew the movie. So all of these beasts are standing at Moon's door. And yeah, I said he was a koala. You knew this. All these beasts are standing at Moon's door, pounding the door, well, not pounding the door down, but stampeding the door because they want the $100,000 prize money. And Moon is yet unaware at this point that that is the sum that he promised. He still thinks that he's going to be giving $1,000. He's still comfortable with where he is, except the world knows something that he doesn't, which is that he actually promised $100,000. But as we're looking at now this scenario, it doesn't seem to be opposed to Moon anymore, right? Because he starts out, there's these problems, his crew, the bank, the restaurant's not treating him nice, and the scene with the audition, it's going great. He is starstruck with how many people are at his door. And this is just crazy. And welcome, come on in, and we'll have the auditions. And the auditions take all day. And Moon's got so much to work with. This is just wonderful. So now the world is not necessarily against Moon. We don't necessarily, I don't find a lie baked into the world is what I'm saying. Moon, I think, is the common denominator to the problems that he's facing. And the problems that he's facing come from a place of truth. You need to meet your financial obligations. Otherwise, people are not going to treat you well. It makes sense that you'd have trouble with that if you're in a place of financial duress, but don't go out to fancy restaurants in that case. But this isn't a common thing with the world, because then the world treats him well, sending him all of these acts to audition. And so it doesn't seem like there's a lie baked into the world as far as I can tell. There is certainly something to be dealt with. Moon encounters the animals that he picks out for his competition, and each member of the ensemble is dealing with their own lie, and they're going to have to shed that lie in order to become the stellar act that they're going to be by the end of the show. So as the movie goes on, Moon's still looking for money. He has voices around him that are trying to tell him to turn around. Most notably is his buddy Eddie. Eddie is telling him this, whatever you're planning is not going to save your theater. You need to give up on the theater. You need to try something else. The theater's not working. And then Eddie introduces Moon to Nana, who is the wealthy thespian that Moon was inspired by at the beginning of the film. And maybe she can get Moon money, and she basically calls him out as a liar. And she insists she will not sponsor Moon's show because he is a liar. The only reason the theater is trash now is because of him. And the Judith from the bank basically tells him the same thing. You've never had a success in your whole career. And Moon never contradicts this story that people are telling him. He doesn't point out any exception to all of these shows that he's presented that have been flops. And yeah, so much going on in my head that's not related here, and I know I'm not going to edit this out because I haven't gotten there yet on YouTube. So I'm going to get over this hurdle and continue talking. Moon is faced with all of this advice, and it's not advice that he wants to hear. And how does he react to it? It goes in one ear and out the other. He explains why everyone's wrong. Oh, yeah, of course these shows were flops. Nobody wants to see these shows, but they'll want to see a singing competition. How does he know? All of his shows have been flops until this point, but he's certain the next show is going to be better. He's certain that he's going to make the theater bigger and better, and he never questions his past career. So he's getting this advice from people from outside. It's the world telling him, listen, if you would just shape up, then you would be better off. And Moon's reaction is not to shape up. Moon's reaction is to say, this is why I know what's right, and this is why my way is best. And so we don't see Moon change over the course of the story. So Moon is not, he's always on the same track over the course of the story. And I'm thinking he's not a change character, so let's look at the flat character arc. Now interestingly, one thing about the change character arc, like I've mentioned, Moon should be believing a lie. If he's a flat character arc, the world should hold the lie, and he should be the force of good that counters that lie. But like I've pointed out in the change character, as we were looking at whether he's a change character, it looks like all of the problems are coming back to Moon. I'm not seeing a world that's broken. I'm seeing a world that's acting properly. And Moon is the character who doesn't care if he's not financially able. He's going to bust through that problem. And so that causes a lot of negative feedback. It's like a magnet. It draws negative feedback on him, and the world responds negatively because the world is responding properly, is acting properly, and Moon has improper expectations, the way I see the movie. That's not I don't think that's the frame that the producers of the movie intended, but it is it's the way that I'm reading the character from where I come from in life. The world makes a lot of sense to me. Moon is a cute character. He is a lovable little trickster, but he doesn't make a lot of sense to me in the real world. So let's check. If he's a flat character, then he holds the truth. So what is this truth that Buster Moon would be holding? We do see with the ensemble, each of them has their own insecurities that's preventing them from fully expressing themselves in their acts. And Moon works, doesn't necessarily directly work with each one of them. I think Gunther really helps Rosita, not Moon, but like with Ash, with Mina, with Johnny, and let's see, we're talking about, yeah, that's the ones I wanted to discuss. He takes a impactful role in each of them. Ash, he's the corporate producer that is antithetical to Ash's boyfriend's way of looking at things, and Ash looks at things the way her boyfriend does. And so Moon is encouraging her to break out of that restricted thought process, and later on she becomes a blend of who she was under her boyfriend and who Moon is encouraging her to be, and I'll explain that a little bit more later. Mina, definitely. Moon is a strong impact character to Mina. That's the whole reason he's the whole reason she gets up on stage in the first place, and that is a central point in the movie, so we'll definitely get there. And Johnny, Moon sees more in Johnny than Johnny expects. Moon thinks that Johnny can conquer the piano, in order to perform his act. So I wouldn't say there's a strong impact there, but there is some, where the way I read Johnny is that he doesn't really have a lot of faith in himself because all of his background is the criminal world that his dad wants him to get into. Johnny's problem is not so huge that he's crippled by it, but you can kind of see him over the course of the show. He starts out kind of hunched over and kind of afraid of how people are going to react to him. He's done with his song and he checks to see, did anyone like that? And Moon likes the song that he sings at the audition, and then Moon wants him to play the piano. And as Johnny is conquering this challenge, Johnny is becoming a stronger character to the point where he thinks he can be something beyond the criminal enterprise that his dad is setting up for him. So Moon does offer wisdom during the story, in the sense of by the force of his own buster personality, he is encouraging the other animals in the ensemble to overcome their own challenges. But regarding Moon's own personal arc, he thinks he knows where he's going. He's in any story. The beginning of the story, the first half of the story, the character is reacting to, at first he's reacting to the normal world, which it's where he's comfortable, it's where he knows how to function, he's pretty good at reacting there. And then the inciting incident happens, and then he finds out about it. And now suddenly he's reacting to a different world. It's thrown him into turmoil, and he doesn't know what to do about it. And then he gets to the middle of the story. And what's supposed to happen at the middle of the story is he's supposed to find out what the whole story is about. And now that sets his feet on solid ground. Now he is no longer reacting. Now he is acting. Now he's got something to do, and he's going to do it because he knows that's what's going to give him what he wants or needs. And he is progressing on his own impetus from that point forward. And so at the middle point of the story, I was studying another flat arc story, trying to get my head wrapped around this story. I love the story Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I think there's a lot of great values to that story. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is about a young man who has very patriotic American ideals. He is inspired by America's history, and he goes to Washington. He's been selected to be a senator because the previous senator passed away, I think, so they needed to find someone to fill his seat. So this American flag in his eyes, young man gets to be a senator. And this is wonderful, and he is odd. He's trying to fill this esteemed role as much as he can. And then in the middle of the story, he finds out that the man he's considered his mentor, the senator who has been an old friend of his father, the man that he considers a mentor, sicked his daughter, who he knew that Jefferson Smith liked. He had his daughter take Jefferson Smith out of the Senate so that Jefferson Smith would not be there to vote on a bill that would be damaging to Jefferson Smith's district. And suddenly, at the midpoint, he realizes there's something wrong with the world I'm in. This is not a nice, clean, pristine, glamorous American world like I expected. There's this seedy underbelly to the world. And Jefferson Smith holds on to his American ideals, so he is not a change character. He's a flat art character. Now he's using those ideals to fight against the evil that he suddenly discovered in the world from the midpoint of the story onward. And so what happens to Buster Moon at the midpoint of his story? Up until that point, he's been kind of floundering. I've got to get this competition. This competition's the only thing. This competition is just like every other show that Buster Moon has produced, but he thinks it's going to save him. and he's got to get the money. Suddenly he finds out that he put out a flyer for $100,000, which is 100 times more money than he was prepared to give. He's got to find the money, and he's always been trying to find the money. He's trying to ask Eddie for his dad to sponsor, which that's dried up. Where is he going to get the money for $100,000 reward plus to save his theater? And so he goes to Nana, Nana Noodleman is her full name, to see if she'll give him the money. And Nana's even more hard-nosed than Eddie's father is. And she insists that she will not give Moon the money because he is a liar, because he is the only reason that theater is dying. That is the midpoint of the story. That is the point where the character should be realizing that he has had a misunderstanding about the world. Even if he were a flat art character like I think Moon is, there's something he hasn't been understanding about the world. That's the point where he's supposed to figure that out and set his feet on solid ground and keep moving, but it goes totally over Moon's head. And he doesn't hear it. He insists, but I've made the theater better and greater, and he's able to convince Nana to come and see a private viewing show for herself, but he's still on the same track. He knows nothing new about the world around him, and he continues acting in the same way. He's still floundering even in the second point of the movie, and in most stories, that should not be. Either as a change character, you find out something about yourself at the midpoint, or as a flat character, you find out something you didn't know about the world at the midpoint, and then you can take action. So that's where Sing is very different from most of the stories that get produced. But again, we don't see Buster coming up with new wisdom. We don't see Buster offering wisdom to the world that solves his problem. Buster continues floundering throughout the story, and it's really by chance. And as a result of the problems that he brings into the story, that we come out with a happy ending. He's got plot armor. The writers need to write a happy ending because this is a kids movie that they've produced. So that's what we get. Again, as I look at it, Buster's got the problem, but Buster doesn't change. He's a flat art character. Now he is on track to be a negative art character, like Mike is in the movie. I think Mike's problem is he thinks that money and fame are going to buy him security. He's got insecurities. That's why he beats up a asthmatic baboon in his first scene, is because when he's tipped a penny for his saxophone playing, he isn't grateful for that money. He thinks it's a slight. That's a sign of insecurity. And so I'm checking myself as I'm talking. He doesn't beat up a baboon, but he sure looks like he will. And over the course of Mike's story, he's seeking money and prestige in order to give himself the security he needs, and it doesn't go well for him. Moon similarly has this, I'm going to say it's a lie, where he's thinking that the theater is going to save him. And it's unfortunate for him that things go well at the end of the movie. This is really a long, tragic arc. If there's a Sing 3 that comes out, it needs to be how Buster Moon finally fails royally, because as I understand, he hasn't changed in Sing 2 either. He continues on a flat arc path that normally would take him to destruction, except we don't see that by the end of Sing. We'll get there. And this lack of change indicates that Moon is a flat character. Let's move on to the next point. We look at Sing, and the glaring message that comes out to us is don't be afraid, basically. Don't let your fear stop you from doing what you love. That is a line in the movie. That is something that Moon says, that is wisdom passed down to him from his father. And that is definitely the theme of the movie. In words spoken in the movie, we know that's the theme of the movie. But we don't see that theme carried in the structure of the movie. Again, these stories tend to have certain structure. I've talked about it before on the channel. The story breaks down into beginning, middle, and end. The middle is usually twice as long as the beginning and the end. So you could break down the story into 4 parts, with splitting it down the middle at the point where the character finds out something about the world that sets him in action instead of reaction. And then each of those parts gets split in the middle somewhere. The inciting incident usually splits the beginning in the middle. And as we're looking at this arc, what we're seeing is the world telling Moon, you need to give up on this dream you've got. This dream is not going to save you. Moon doesn't change. Moon doesn't provide a counter argument. He just he continues dreaming. It's the way that I see the movie. I would love, if you are aware of the counter argument in this movie that Moon presents, I would love to see your perspective down in the comments. All I'm seeing is Moon trying the same thing that he failed by the last time. So we get the message that you shouldn't be afraid because it's told to us. But as the movie goes, we're not seeing a strong reason to believe that until the very end of the movie. This is a case study of one example that happens to go right. And with case studies, I have trouble believing in a lot of studies anyway, because I like to know what all of the factors are that go into them. But with a case study especially, and this kind of study is where you take one example out of everybody who say, let's say you're looking at all of the screenwriters who have been successful, and you take one example out and you look at what made that screenwriter successful, and you come up with your theory about why this one screenwriter was successful. I don't tend to trust that kind of study because it feels like cherry picking to me. Yeah, that screenwriter was successful, but you haven't found the screenwriter who did the same things who failed. You haven't found the screenwriter who didn't have the one thing that you thought made this one successful and still succeeded. So it gives you a little truth, because there was one individual with these qualities who did succeed, but what other factors are you not factoring in? In this story, Sing, we have one individual who succeeds against all odds. And that's a problem, because if we're going to apply the message of a story to ourselves, well, how do we counter those odds? So as we're looking at the structure of the story, I'm saying the message of the story doesn't show up. We get Moon has the lie that he thinks that the theater will save him, and the world acts properly as the world should and says that's not a reliable belief to have, and we get no explanation of why that belief is unreliable. Let's see. Actually, I'm covering a bunch of these points as I'm going. I guess the point I want to make here, the world's presenting a message to Moon. It goes completely over its head. These shows are not worth it. They're not going to sustain your theater. Yeah, of course those shows are not worth it, but this show is worth it. No, it's you. You're the problem. You're the reason your theater is not succeeding. Oh, but I'm making things better. And then as you watch Moon go through the movie, as he's preparing the show for Nana Noodleman, he is lying and stealing, trying to cobble together some semblance of the splendor that he's trying to show Nana. This splendor isn't real. It's an illusion. You can tell, because he is he's stealing the electricity to run his theater. He's stealing the glass for the tank. He's stealing the water for the tank. He's stealing the squid for this tank. So none of it is his. And he's trying to pull this all together into an illusion that has been real to nobody. He is faking it until he makes it. And as we find out it's called the pinch point, the second pinch point in the movie. It's in the third out of 4 parts of the movie. we find out that this illusion comes crashing down. He cannot fake it until he makes it. What does all of this imply? Moon not listening, not hearing the wisdom that the world is trying to tell him. Look at yourself. Not it's all going over his head. What does this imply about Moon? And this is where I'm bringing my Christianity into my read of the movie, because the Bible does have a lot to say about people like Moon. I want to go ahead and share with you the verses that I pulled up about this. The book of Proverbs has a lot to say here. We're going to be mostly in Proverbs. We're also going to be looking at something else written by the author of Proverbs. So this blue verse here is the one I want to look at. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. So definitely this seems very similar to Buster Moon. He is not listening to advice, so he's on the way of the fool here. It's right in his own eyes. Next tab. A rebuke goes deeper into a man of understanding than 100 blows into a fool. And we see Moon get bashed and manhandled throughout the movie. He's a tiny little koala. It's easy to pick him up and fling him around. And yet, none of that matters. Him getting tossed aside and flooded at one point in the movie, and not dealt with respectfully. This doesn't sink into him. He's still on his path. He's not listening to the rebukes of the people around him who are trying to help him to be on a better path. Let's see, that's my outline. Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words. Every time that people try to tell Moon what's wrong with what he's understanding, he disregards it, and he continues on the path that he's set out for himself. Fine speech is not becoming to a fool, still less false speech to a prince. Moon is a talker. Moon is very quick with words. He is quick to come up with a response. And that is something that Nana doesn't favor in him. She can see he's a fast talker, and that's not something she appreciates. He doesn't see it. That's his survival mechanism, is to talk quickly and to talk around the issues that he's being confronted with. We're going to move from Proverbs to Ecclesiastes, also written by King Solomon, from what we understand. This one's a good section on fools. The words of a wise man's mouth win him favor, but the lips of a fool consume him, and constantly Moon's words are getting him into trouble. The beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is evil madness. A fool multiplies words, though no man knows what is to be, and who can tell him what will be after him? Now definitely the world around Moon has a point. Nothing he's tried has worked so far. Maybe he'd better stop trying the same thing all the time. He is certain that this thing will be better, but how does he know? He doesn't see the future, and he's not looking to the past for reference. Back to Proverbs. He who sires a fool gets himself sorrow. So he who fathers a fool, basically. The father of a fool gets himself sorrow. He who sires a fool gets himself sorrow, and the father of a fool has no joy. I should read on. And by this movie, Moon's father apparently has passed away already. He's just a distant memory. But that is a fear that Buster Moon has in this movie, is that he's going to disrespect his father's legacy, because his father gave his life, essentially, not literally, but poured his life into getting this theater for his son Buster. And now what does Buster have to show for it? It's all crumbling under him. He's dishonoring the memory of his father. So even here he looks similar to what the Bible is saying about the fool. Like snow in summer or rain in harvest, so honor is not fitting for a fool. And throughout the movie, Moon is getting disrespected, dishonored by a world that is acting properly. So this is where he belongs. And then towards the end of the movie, he is finally given a place of honor. And the question is that suitable for him? especially since he hasn't learned any lessons personally in the movie. The discerning sets his face towards wisdom, but the eyes of a fool are on the ends of the earth. And again, very much like Moon, I'm not saying don't have a dream. I'm not saying don't aim for something. But Moon is not looking at the world around him to learn from it. His eyes are on the moon. And he is constantly aspiring to something further on, something in the distance. He is, and that dream is carrying him. It's controlling him. Instead of him being able to take a look around, reason out what he needs to do, and listen to the input that the world is giving him. This one is kind of picturesque. I don't know why the screen is smaller font at this point, but like a dog that returns to his vomit is a fool who repeats his folly. Again, he continues doing the same thing despite people saying you need to change. A fool despises his... Okay, this is one I wanted to pull out because this is where he actually doesn't fit the image of a fool. A fool despises his father's instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent. Now, he doesn't heed reproof. That's his problem. That's why he's a fool. But one thing that Moon does have going for him is he values the instruction his father gave him. And his father valued hard work, and his father valued working toward a dream. His father said, don't let fear stop you from doing what you love. His father was an industrious koala. He was willing to work for years at as a car washer, and was willing to earn the first step that his son needed in order to buy this theater that was his dream. And that was the lesson he was instilling into Moon. But that is the only lesson that Moon has learned in his entire life, unfortunately. So I'll turn on back to full screen before I look at my outline again. So we see that in a lot of respects, Buster Moon is behaving similarly to a fool, to a biblical fool. The Bible, if it were watching the same movie, would say that man is a fool. That koala is a fool. He's got one thing going for him. He values the wisdom of his father. Unfortunately, he doesn't find wisdom anywhere else. So the as I'm looking at this story, we've got a story that is built for a character who changes. I think the world has a point in Buster Moon's case. And we've got a character who is flat, who doesn't change. He should be learning a lesson, but he does not. And I think when people watch Sing, I've been looking at some of the other reviews for Sing, and I've been seeing a lot of people saying, this is corporate, this is... corporate soda is what I'm going to say. Most of it is just air. There's nothing to it. It's fluff. And why is it that people are coming up with this reaction that Sing is a movie just made by the cinema industry to drag people in and get their money? That it has no substance. I think this is why. Because we've got a change arc where Moon's supposed to be learning a lesson and he doesn't. And the main character in a movie is a stand-in for us. So if the main character isn't learning a lesson or isn't teaching a lesson, then we are learning nothing and we get nothing from the movie. My main issue with the movie has been the midpoint, where Moon should be gleaning the wisdom that he needs and he doesn't. That is a weak point in the movie. Because he doesn't learn the lesson that he should, by the time we get to the final act of the movie, there's a point between the, I'm considering this as a 4-act structure. A lot of people say 3 acts, beginning, middle, and end. I'm considering the middle to be 2 acts. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 acts in the movie. Between the 3rd act and the 4th act, there should be a point where the main character is fully committed to the truth. Either he has been holding on to a lie, he finds out the reality about himself in the middle of the movie, and it takes him another act to figure out what that means. How does he let go of this lie that has been part of his life for his entire life. And then it takes him an act, and finally around between the third and the fourth act, that's when he says, I would rather have the truth. I am going to be committed to the truth. I don't know what that looks like, but I know it's better than living according to the lie. And that is when he's finally empowered to face whatever the antagonistic force is that's been making his life miserable for the story. That happens at the third and fourth act. Definitely the character who has the truth should be fully committed to that truth, and that should be giving him the armor he needs to go into battle for the fourth and climactic act of the movie. So what happens at the third plot point for Buster Moon? What happens just before this third plot point is he, from the Midpoint, he invited Nana to see this personal show, and then he stole to make a tank filled with stolen water and stolen squid who light up the stage and make it look glamorous, and it's wonderful. But then in comes Mike, who is a very key character for the plot. Mike is a plot driver. Mike has been living it up, assuming that he's going to get the $100,000. Mike has been living his life based on a lie, based on a heap of lies. And he cheated at a card game, angering some bears. If you're a mouse, you do not want to anger bears and make enemies of bears, because apparently these guys are very dogged. They see his car outside of the theater and they come in to get their money, and Mike says the money is in that chest over there that's on stage, that $100,000 waiting for you on stage. And when Moon is unwilling to open the chest because it's not $100,000, it's $1,000, and Moon knows that the whole thing has been a lie, the bears break into the chest, and in the course of breaking into the chest, this is a very powerful thematic moment. They break through the lie of the prize, and the whole theater comes crashing down. The whole thing was a lie. Everything concrete and real in appearance is just a facade. And then by the end of this scene, there is no theater. And there is no ensemble, because what are they going to do? There's no place to hold a show. And they do come back, and they try to encourage Moon, and they try to express concern for him. But Moon finally, for the first time in the whole show, is honest about what a fool he's been. And he realizes that he's washed up, literally, because he got flooded out of his theater with all of the stolen water from the tank. But also, figuratively, he's been washed up his whole life. And what is he going to do with that? The only thing he can do, he can go to his father's job, he can wash cars. Not a very fulfilling way of life, but this is who he is. This is what he's about. And then he hears Mina, the stage fright elephant, singing privately to herself. And she's really important. She is more of an impact character to Buster Moon's impact character is his friend Eddie. Eddie, throughout the whole movie, is saying this is not going to save your theater. Now, when Buster Moon looks at Eddie, he sees a purposeless kid who plays video games. So it doesn't settle with him that Eddie has any wisdom for him, that Eddie is speaking the truth of the story. What happens with an impact character is if the main character has a lie, the impact character has the truth. If the main character has the truth, the impact character has a lie. Now, Buster Moon knows that he's got the truth, because he's a flat character who doesn't change. He must have the truth. And so whatever Eddie says, that his theater is not going to be saved by whatever he's trying, must be a lie. And yet, in reality, what happens is the theater comes crumbling down. Eddie was telling the truth. So that's how we know the story is made to be a change, and Buster Moon should be holding on to a lie right now. Which Buster Moon comes face to face. Really, when the theater comes crashing down and Buster Moon has to realize who he is, that should happen in the middle of the story. That's where he comes to terms with reality, and he needs enough time to figure out what he's going to do with himself from that point. It happens right up against the final act. But Buster is pitted against Eddie as an impact character, but Buster is Mina's impact character. Mina's got this arc. She is a wonderful singer. Her family knows she's a wonderful singer, and she knows she's got something, but she is just so afraid. She's always hiding behind her curtain-like elephant ears whenever she goes up on stage to perform herself in public. And she just cannot get a single note out when she's performing in public. And that's where Buster Moon tells her, don't let fear stop you from doing the thing you love. You know how you stop that fear, Mina? You just sing. If you sing, then you won't be afraid because you'll be great because you'll actually be doing it. And so that is Buster's philosophy. That is what helps him bust through whatever it is that's in his way. And Mina is learning her lesson from him. But as Buster is his career is crashing down, there's a point in the third plot point where he tells Mina, you and I are both afraid for good reason, because we both know deep down that we don't have what it takes, which is insulting to Mina. She knows she's got what it takes. She's just not able to get beyond herself to express that. Buster, I think, has the truth at that point. He knows that he's not going to get there with the course of action that he's always been taking. So what does he do? He tries a different course of action, which is the car wash. So as he's at the car wash, he overhears Mina singing at the site of the crumbled theater. She's wonderful. And she, face to face with him, realizes he's heard her singing. Oh no. But he says, I would love to see that happen. And she says, I want to try to make that happen. That is the whole third plot point. And to me, it rings hollow. Like I say, I think Buster Moon is coming to terms with his truth, that the person that he's been has been standing on a hill of lies, and whatever the substance was that was under him, it has come crashing down, and now he's in the rubble of the truth, and he needs to figure out where to go from there. But the movie doesn't give us a good reason why he should try the same thing again. The only reason that Buster Moon should try the same thing, should try to run a competition again, is because he has tried that before. It's all he knows. He's a flat character who doesn't learn. There are flat characters who have wisdom to teach us, but Moon is not one of those characters. And so, but they decide they're going to try the competition again. They cobble together the rubble of the theater into a makeshift theater, a newly refurbished open-air theater, as Moon tells the crowds at this location. And he's on the same track that he's always been and always failed at. He's learning nothing. So the third plot point is when he should embody the new lesson, the new self that he's been unfamiliar with. This is where he should finally come to terms with it. Figure out how to use a bow instead of a sword. If he's been, if your character has been a proficient swordsman and that's not working, pick up a different weapon. It's going to take you some time to learn it. And this is where he finally comes into his own, right? And learns a new thing that he can finally use to defeat the enemy. But no, Moon is going back to the old thing. And so why should this work? It hasn't worked throughout the movie. This hasn't worked throughout before the movie, from the backstory. Why should this work? But it works because this is a kids show and we've got to make it happy instead of making Moon a tragic character. So this third plot point here rings hollow. There's no substance to the moment that he changes. And okay, I've been going through my outline pretty well. Here's a question. I enjoy Sing. I actually do. I love the movie. That's why I'm bringing it out first. Why do I love this movie? Why is it that Sing is a phenomenon? Maybe it's not one of the greatest phenomenon, but it is a phenomenon in our culture. Why is there a Sing 2? What is it about Sing that has made it as successful as it is, given that half of the movie is based on fluff? And I think the reason that Sing is as successful as it is because of the ensemble. Because Moon is a successful flat arc character when it comes to the people around him, to the ensemble. You have Ash, who's been living in the shadow of her boyfriend. You have Rosita, whose image of herself is preventing her from being who she really is. You have Mina, who's so afraid of. I assume her stage fright comes from a place of fear about how the world will react. Maybe it's more of a physical thing. Maybe she just has always learned to behave with fear on the stage and doesn't know how to try something different. I would give her that. There's Mike, who is looking for security in all the wrong places. And there's Johnny, who doesn't have a strong sense of self-worth, probably because his dad is a criminal who's trying to rope him into the criminal enterprise. And all of these characters successfully change. They look at Moon, or they're influenced by Moon, or they've got someone like Gunter who is helping them to become a different person. And these are successful arcs, especially Rosita is my favorite. I think she's the most like me. Mina and Rosita I consider to be kind of the same character. They've got the same problem. It's just Rosita is a little bit better at transcending her problem than Mina is. Rosita can at least get on stage, sing, and have a wonderful voice. Trying to gather my thoughts here. So these characters each have a great arc on their own. They change except for Mike, who has a very successful negative character arc. Their arcs are solid. I think they're carrying the weight of this story on their back, and that's why the main character, protagonist, Buster Moon, can crash and burn as a character. He's not an effective character at all as far as story structure goes. The movie rings hollow, but it still rings. And so that's why the movie continues to be as successful as it is. Now, what could be done to make the movie better? Let me be self-indulgent. I am not a successful storyteller. I've tried, and I've never been so committed to my own stories that I was willing to put them out and publish. That's why I'm a Rosita. So, but I'd like to take a shot at what would make Sing a more effective movie. I think the message of the movie is drivel. Yeah, there are probably good movies. I ought to look at Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium. I love that movie. It's got the same message, believe in yourself. So I ought to look at whether there's any substance to the message of that movie. Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium is a shining spot in my movie-going experience. By the way, most of the movies I see are family-friendly, so you're probably going to see a lot of kids' movies on this channel. Doesn't mean I won't break out of that mold, but that's how I roll. I think that in this case, in Sing's case, the movie needs to be that truth triumphs over fear. What's Moon's big problem? He's a liar. He has lied to others. Yes, you'll get paid. Yes, I'm here to pay for my bill to eat. Yes, I will get the money to pay the bank. Yes, there is $100,000 in that chest. His whole life is built on lies, and they all come crashing down just before the third plot point. And that's what we need to settle. That's the problem that Moon needs to solve, is that he is self-deceived and he continues to deceive others. We need to get down to the truth. Moon needs to grapple with the truth, and the truth is he's a wash-up. So how do we fix the story? We bring him face to face with the truth, and he's got to listen, because fools are great in stories when they're holding on to the truth, because then you get the trickster character, who is not so much a fool as he is a wise man behaving like a fool. Moon is a solid fool. There is no no truth, no substance in him. We need to get him to face the truth. We need to put some substance into this koala and have him walk away a richer, fuller person as a result. So how do we do that? For one thing, I think that Moon and Mina, their relationship is the key to the whole story. That's what happens in the third plot point. When Moon finally is empowered to take action in the movie, I think it comes a little late. It's when he's face to face with Mina, and the image that we've got, he's been washing cars. He's dressed in nothing but a Speedo. He is completely sopping wet because apparently if you're an animal with fur, you don't use sponges. Even though you act like a normal person throughout everything else in this movie. But Moon is physically as true as he's ever been about himself. We always see him throughout the movie in a little suit, and he's always well put together, and nothing's ever wrong, but that is a total sham. That is a lie. And the real Moon is sopping wet in nothing but a Speedo. And I think this is a very good metaphor for who he is. He's a wash-up. And there is nothing to him. There is just him and the water that is coating his fur. And he is, that's how he finds Mina, and he is listening to her song, and that's what inspires him to turn around. So Mina is a very powerful character to Moon because in his eyes, she is himself. If there's one thing that's different, she doesn't actually step up and perform, and he says there's a good reason for that. It's because neither of us has what it takes to move forward, up until he sees that she does have what it takes. And then I guess if you were going to apply any logic to this point, he's thinking, well, she's me, so if she has what it takes, then I must have what it takes, which is totally wrong, because all of Moon's history says that he doesn't have what it takes. So he is, again, disregarding the history that should be giving him the lesson. He is using Mina as an excuse to run away from the truth in that third plot point. So how do we fix that? What's Mina's problem? What is it that Moon changes about Mina? She has a sense of herself, but she's afraid that the world does not agree. And so she can sing in private. She might sing in front of her family, and then when they compliment her, she hides behind her ears. And I don't think she hates compliments. I think she discounts what her family says. Naturally, I think we always do. If your family likes you, well, that's because they're your family. But what does the rest of the world think? And so she gets up on stage, and she is so afraid of what the rest of the world will think that she hides behind her ears and she cannot sing. And what her main problem is then is she's afraid of facing the truth. She's afraid of facing what the world thinks. What if the truth is they hate her? What if the truth is she doesn't have what it takes? And so she hides from that. She doesn't express herself because she's afraid she might find out the truth is that she's the only one who cares about her singing. And how can we use Mina to make this more effective? I think most of what Moon says to her is fine, is good. He tells her, don't let fear stop you from doing what you love, and just sing and you won't be afraid. I think there needs to be a little bit more. I think there needs to be a hint of maybe it would be better to know that you've got a problem than to continue the way that you are. I don't think Moon can give Mina that message, because Moon's got, in this scenario, I'm thinking Moon is going to be a change character. So Moon's got his own change arc, and that is a lesson he is learning. That is not a lesson he has. And maybe Eddie, because Eddie is Moon's impact character. Maybe he could feed Mina at this point or something. Wouldn't it be better to know if the world actually has a point. Wouldn't it be better to know if there's something you need to change about yourself than to be afraid to express yourself and never find out what you can do to be better? And then when Moon sees Mina, sees her speaking, that is going to be at the kind of the third plot point for herself also, where she is coming to terms with this truth that she's been given. And that's where she's going to accept, yeah, that's a belief that I want to take, and that's a belief I want to act on. And maybe then she would give Buster Moon the thought, you know what? I really think I want to know what people think of me. I want to know what I can do to be my best self. So yeah, I want to go on stage and put myself out there and see who I can really be, who I really am, and if I can be better. And that's what Moon should walk away with, is put your true self out there. Not a facade, not something that's going to crumble down underneath you. Put your true self out there and accept the input that the world gives you. And then from that point on, they go on and they have their show just like they do in the movie. They cobble together the theater. They're putting their true selves out there. They need some sort of structure. But Moon is not going to call it a newly refurbished open-air theater in this scene as he's talking to the crowd at the final show. He is going to say it is clear, it is all over the news, what has happened here. And we've worked very hard to put on a presentation. So regardless of all of the disaster that has happened with this theater, we still want to put this presentation on for you. And we are very happy to see you here to watch, and we hope you think it's great. Something like that, something humble, because Moon has not been humble the entire movie. The climax comes. In the main movie, they're holding their competition. I don't think the climax starts until Ash's performance. We have Rosita. She's wonderful. She has clearly changed as a person. We have Johnny. He's wonderful. He is stellar. But their acts happen without any resistance. Ash steps up to sing, and she is no longer wearing the same sweater her boyfriend used to wear. She's now wearing the pop star princess dress that Moon wanted her to wear, but she is not bowing to his to his image of her either. She has got her own little red jacket on. She's got her own sunglasses. Actually, I think they're Becky's sunglasses, come to think of it. This is the first time I'm thinking of it, but I believe they're Becky's sunglasses. But she's got her sunglasses. She is a different persona than either Lance or Moon want her to be. Let me talk about Ash's arc real quick, because it's going to tie together this climax of the movie. Ash has been hiding in the shadow of her boyfriend. When she wants to sing out, he says, no, you're just back up. You just back me up because you're ruining my song. And she goes, oh, okay. She's got this rebellious kind of personality to her, but it doesn't carry over to her boyfriend. She thinks her boyfriend is wonderful. When Moon doesn't want Lance in the show, but he wants Ash, Ash says, Lance is an artist, but you wouldn't understand. And Moon agrees, he doesn't understand. So she's in the show, and she's presented with this song. I agree with Ash. I do not care for the song that she is given. There's no value to. It's all fluff, this song that she's given, this pop star song. Call Me Maybe, I think it is. And she's resistant, but she goes along with it. She wants to strike out on her own, maybe write up her own song, but Lance says, listen, do what the koala says. If you're going to be part of the show, then do what the koala says. And so Ash puts on the pretty pop star dress and practices the song. But then Lance cheats on her, because Lance is not an artist. Lance is a phony. And she can't see that because she's love struck until he cheats on her. And then she kicks him and Becky out of the room, and Becky loses her sunglasses in the in the room, which is why I think it's so funny that that Ash is wearing them at her final contest. But we have Ash now is coming face to face with her own truth that her boyfriend has been holding her back. Her boyfriend was a lie that was holding her back. And she's still grappling with that truth. She's at her midpoint in her own story when she steps up to do her rehearsal and sings this Call Me Maybe song, and she is in tears. She's standing there in her pretty pop star princess dress, and she is in tears because everything that she's found, her own little theater has collapsed under her with Lance cheating on her. Everything that she's built herself on is a lie. The sweater that she wore doesn't represent who she is. It's her boyfriend's. The respect that she had for him as an artist, that's gone. That was not real. Everything that she's based herself on was a lie. And she doesn't know what to do with it. And that's all coming out in this rehearsal. And Buster Moon says no one will call her after that. it's the joke he makes. He's not making a serious comment about her. He's commenting about the performance, which is awful. So she then sets out to develop herself. She writes her own song. She starts to practice her own song, and that's great. Buster hears her playing her song. That's the song you need to perform from Nana Noodleman. Doesn't matter that it's not the pop star song. That's the song that you need to play. And so that's the message, the wisdom that he gives her is be yourself. Don't hide behind Lance. Don't hide behind me, the pop star image that I've got for you. Sing your own song. And that's the song that Ash comes out with in the climax. But Ash is the first act that gets any resistance. Judith from the bank comes out. This is bank property because Buster Moon defaulted on his mortgage. Everyone needs to get off of the property. This show is over. And Ash resists that. She starts stomping her foot to the beat, and she sings even though she can't play the guitar because Judith unplugged it. She's going to put on her show anyway. She is going to express herself anyway. And the crowd loves it, and Judith storms off, and the guitar gets plugged in. Ash gives a great performance. Next act, Mike's act. Because Johnny's act was so stellar, his dad has broken out of jail, and now the police are chasing him in helicopters. That almost ruins Mike's act. Of course, the point is, Mike was great all along. He didn't have to hide behind his insecurity, but he can't see it because he's a negative art character. And so he, even though he knows how great he is, he doesn't learn that he needs to shed his insecurity and just be himself. But he's able to pull off the act anyway, even though the fact that the helicopters are around and a poor little mouse gets swept up in the vortex and everything, it should trash the concert. But because this is the climax, Mike pulls it off, and he's a wonderful performer. And then Mina finally comes out, and of course her stage fright has held her back for the entire movie. This is her life. This is the moment that stands between the life that she had and the life that she will have. And she takes Buster's advice. She just sings. And as she sings, she develops right there on stage. You can see her going from hiding behind her little ears to they're totally open. She's jumping around the stage. By the time that she's done with the show, she has literally brought down the house, which is fine because it was already brought down once, so we're fine. And it's okay, and everyone loved it. That's so with the idea, we're not looking for fearlessness in this movie. We're looking for truth. What would this look like? Ash is fearless because she is expressing her true self for once. For once, she is putting herself out there and being true. And the truth is, she's not going to let someone else make her stand in the shadows again. And so she's able to overcome Judith. Mike, the truth is, he's great. and he acts on that truth. That's why he's able to pull off the show. The problem is he doesn't learn that over the show, and his arc is just perfect the way it is. Where Mina would be more effective is if, as she's going out there, she's going to just sing, presenting herself as she is in front of the crowds. And so it's okay when she steps out on the stage and she's behind her ears. This is herself. But she came out here to sing. And so she starts singing as quietly as she does in the movie. And this is just herself. And she's just here to put herself in front of the crowd and see what they think. And as she realizes it's okay to be herself, even if she's still learning the lesson, it's okay to be herself. It's also okay to express herself more, to put more of herself out there, to sing the way that she does for her grandpa's birthday, the way that she does on a crumbling theater by herself. She can sing here on stage. It's not about the crowds. She'll get their feedback later. It's about expressing her true self. That's when she blossoms. That's when she opens up. And even if it seems weird that she's going to be open, jump around the stage, it's all okay because that's herself that she's expressing to the crowds. And then she gets a positive feedback. She doesn't have to be afraid of the public. The public loves it. I think that would be an effective movie. And I just think Mina is a great character. So if I'm getting emotional, I hope it's not because I'm overly proud about my thought concept. It's because I do relate to that character. I relate to Rosita, and I think Rosita and Mina are very similar in their character arcs. Let's see. So overall, not a lot has to change about the movie. Maybe you move some plot points around so that they fit the structure a little bit better. I think at the midpoint, when Nana Noodleman tells Buster Moon that he's a liar, that needs to sting. It doesn't sting him as it stands in the current movie. I think that needs to sting if it's going to be powerful. It needs to sit in his little koala brain. He needs to think about it. It needs to be a factor when his theater comes down. He needs to see that as the lie coming down. And he needs to grapple with it. And when he's facing Mina, he has recognized the truth. He's a wash-up. He's recognized the truth. He should be washing cars. But also there is something true about him too. And maybe that's where Mina can give him the encouragement. Maybe we just need to express ourselves as bad as we are. And that's what he comes up with is he's going to be his true self. Yes, tomorrow after the concert, he's going to go back to washing cars. But he's got this desire to stun crowds, and it's something he can't shake, and he's got to express that. And that would be fine with the concept of truth is overpowers fear. One last thing I want to show, because as a Christian, I want to express things that the Bible says is true, because I believe the Bible is true. So if what I say counters what the Bible is saying, then what I'm saying is untrue. That's my background. That's my belief. So what does the Bible say about this? Beginning of Proverbs, very beginning of the book, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." So here we see Buster. But the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The Bible says fear is actually a good thing. But you should only fear one thing. And that thing that you should fear is God. Us Christians live in, us humans, and Christians are humans, so it happens with us too, regretfully, but us humans live in an antagonistic relationship with God. We have this sin nature that drives us to always seek to supersede God. We would rather go our own way than go God's way. And in that respect, we're very much like Buster Moon. There are so many things that God has to teach us that we will not learn because we are sinful, we are rebellious, we are not going to listen to what he has to say to us. but he is the sovereign of the universe. He created the entire thing. He knows how it all fits together, and he knows how to use it to defeat evil. And when we are denying the truth that he is that sovereign, then we are on the side of evil. And so we should fear God, because God is definitely capable of defeating us. And when we have that attitude, the attitude that the Bible is expressing, when we also recognize God is the sovereign of the universe, he knows how it works, he knows how to use it to defeat evil. If we're on his side, now we're no longer on the side of evil. And anything that is against us, anything that opposes us being who God wants us to be, is evil and will get defeated. So, one of the things I love about Mina, I don't know if this is intentional, but it sure looks like it. When she's at home singing for her grandfather's birthday, he says, "I wish you would join a choir or a band or something." And then in the third plot point, when she's singing her song that Buster Moon hears, it's Hallelujah. Now, I don't think Hallelujah is a very good song from a Christian perspective. But what matters is not the whole song. What matters is the line that Mina is singing. And she's singing that chorus, Hallelujah. I kind of suspect that the producers of the story think that Mina comes from a conservative Christian background. At least a Christian background. Her family is, she's got a very strong family structure. Don't know where her dad is. Dads don't seem to show up in movies very often. You would think Hollywood thinks you don't need a mother and a father in order to have kids, but she does have her grandparents there. Her mom is on positive terms with her grandparents, and it's a very solid nuclear family structure. And her grandpa is open to church, to choir. I've heard of choirs outside of churches, but usually they're in churches. And she's singing Hallelujah. So I think that Mina is, maybe in her backstory, there is some religious component, especially a Christian religious component. So that's not canon as far as I know. I just kind of see that in there. So when Mina steps up on stage and she's deciding that she's coming from herself, she could possibly come from a perspective. I'm not saying that this should be a Christian movie. I've mentioned before on this channel, in videos before on this channel, I believe God is the standard of truth. All truth comes from God. So if you're pursuing the truth, you're pursuing God. If the truth is your highest goal, then you are in line with God. Maybe you're not fully there yet because you don't have the full truth, but I think God will make sure that you find the truth about him. If you're actually after the truth, I think that's the way things will go. I think Mina could have a perspective, at least in my head canon. She could have a little bit of more depth on the movie, because she would have a realization about God. She would understand God to be a person. She's on God's side. And she knows that God gave her a gift to sing. She knows that that is a gift that she is not tapping into to bless other people. And that's something that God gave her and wants her to use to benefit other people. But how is she going to do that if she's too afraid to step up on stage? And so when she steps up on stage, it doesn't matter how many people are out there to hate her performance, because she's got her God behind her, and he wants her to sing. And that's why she's singing. And in any Christian's case, when we're following the truth, when we're following God's will, and we're doing something scary, we can recognize God created the universe. He knows how it works. Anything that opposes us while we're on his side is evil, and he will defeat that evil. And so, from her perspective, it doesn't matter if people hate me, because God loves me. And then she can share her gift with the world, and any fear of that hate goes away, because that hate gets defeated by God. It doesn't matter what people say to her. The truth is behind her. It's not against her. That That would be I think, a great perspective for the movie if it were going to be a Christian film. I think even if we just get to, I'd rather know the truth about my true self than stand behind a fantasy that I've made up. Even that would be a better message than believing yourself. And I'm just going to check my outline. I think that is the end of the evening of the film. I'm actually recording in morning. I like to record early so the sun's not up yet, so I call it evening. But that's the truth. And I'll call it here, and God bless you.